So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next lecture on Markov chains. Uh, in the last lecture, so we'll briefly recap what we discussed in the last lecture. So one of the main observations which we had in the last lecture was that the n step transition probability which we have like so maybe it is the conditional probability given that at the nth step we were at I is the mth power of the transition probability matrix. Should say is given by the okay by the nth power of the transition probability matrix. This observation of course is true only if the Markov chain is time homogeneous. So when we mean time homogeneous, it is means that it is invariant with time. It does not change with time. One of the related observations with this is the Chapman-Kolmogorov equation, which we did not talk about last time, but maybe we can briefly discuss it in today's lecture. So we, in the last class, we observed the first statement for an example Markov chain. We took a two-state Markov chain. We did some calculations and then we observed it. But this statement can be proved for a general Markov chain using the Chapman-Kolmogorov equation. So what the Chapman-Kolmogorov equation it basically says is that the probability that will go from I to j in m plus n steps is given by sum over all intermediate states k, which I can reach in m steps, and from k such that from k we can go to j in n steps. Okay, so what it basically says is that if we have let's say these states at time 0, and this is the set of all possible k's, but this is at time m and this is at time m plus n. So this is our state I. These are our k candidates, and this is our state j. So this is what the Chapman-Kolmogorov equation is telling us, that if we want to go from I to j in m plus n steps, then what we are doing is that I to k in m steps and k to j in n steps. Okay. The Markov property by the Markov property, the two parts of the journey are independent. Okay. So using the Chapman-Kolmogorov equation, we can prove this first statement for any general transition probability matrix. If that is time homogeneous. So we will just assume that everything is time homogeneous. It does not vary with time step. So for a general transition probability matrix or for a general Markov chain, we can prove the first claim that the n-step transition probability is given by the mth power of the transition probability matrix using the Chapman-Kolmogorov equation. Okay, we do not go through the actual proof, but I mean, yeah, so it just involves some algebra and some considerations. Then another thing which we discussed in the last lecture was the challenges or the complexities in constructing Markovian models. Okay. We did not, I mean, we sort of looked at this point very vaguely. We did not took any specific example and then say that, okay, this is the problem, that is the problem, but just to give you an idea of what problems can happen or what are the complications in Markovian models, we just looked at it vaguely. There was also one paper, you can read it, it has a case study from computational biophysics, so it might give you more insights on what are the complications. Then the other thing which we discussed was the concept of a stationary distribution. Okay, so we said that any probability distribution on the set of states such that pi p is equal to pi is the stationary probability distribution. Okay, so if the at every time step, the probability distribution over the states, it does not change. That is why it is referred to as stationary probability distribution. If we have time indices here, so yeah, so we will have p of t plus 1. So that is why it is called stationary, because it does not, the probability distribution over the states, it does not move. We using an example in the last lecture, we also got a feel of the relation of eigen okay, let us say relation of the spectral properties of the transition probability matrix with the convergence to the stationary distribution. Okay. To be specific, it depends on the magnitudes of the other eigenvalues. The topmost eigenvalue will be 1. At least for that example, it was 1. Generally, also it will be 1. And after that, based on how fast the other eigenvalues decay, the convergence will happen. Okay, so these are the four things which we informally discussed in the last lecture. So in today's lecture, we have we have two items in the agenda. So first is that we will have a discussion on the classification of states of a Markov chain. Okay, there are different terms associated in different literature, and some will use persistent states, strongly connected, irreducible, recurrent, transient, absorbing states. There are so many things. Many of the meanings are intuitive and easy to understand. So we will not get entangled in the jargon, but rather we will try to understand the concept, and whenever it is required, we can look up what this concept is actually called, because in different literature it might have different names. And then in the second item of the agenda is that we will do some analysis associated with what we can say, okay, associated with the classification of states. Okay. So although we will be doing this analysis in the context of Markov chain, these are the tools that we will be discussing. They are sort of tricks which can be used in general also if we are working with random variables and stochastic processes. So its value is more than just as a tool to analyze the Markov chains. Okay. So moving on to the first part, we will discuss 4 examples, and using those 4 examples, we hope that we will get a firm grasp on the classification of states and a conceptual understanding of what is uh, happening in different Markov chains. So the first example has 3 states, let's say A, B, C. So another thing is that you can refer the textbook on not the essentials of stochastic processes by Richard Durrett. I hope I have spelled the name correctly. Okay, Richard Durrett. So let us take this example. Okay, so these are all non-zero probabilities that we have. We can assign numbers to them as well, but it will just clutter the diagram even more. But nevertheless, okay. Now we will make some observations regarding this Markov chain, and based on those observations, we will understand how to classify the chain. Okay. So such a Markov chain is called an irreducible Markov chain, because from state A we can reach state B and C. From C we can reach A and B, and from B we can reach A and C. Okay, so all the states are reachable from any initial state. So this is like a strongly connected graph. Okay, so yeah, okay. So this is an irreducible Markov chain, and the main observation is that can move from any state to any other state. You can also refer to this as node in the graph. Okay. So another thing is that the Markov chain will have a unique stationary distribution. We will look at this in the following lectures, unique stationary distribution and all those things, but just remember that it has a unique stationary distribution. This graph, this Markov chain is aperiodic. Okay. By aperiodicity, we'll not be spending too much time on this. So you can say that GCD of the length of directed cycles is 1. Okay. We will look at an example of a periodic Markov chain also later, which will help you clarify some of the associations between the 4 items that we have written. So this is simple. The main takeaway is that if we can move from any state to any state in the Markov chain, then we say that it is an irreducible Markov chain. The graph of such a Markov chain will be connected, strongly connected. Okay. Now, now that we have discussed an irreducible Markov chain, let us look at an example of something that is not irreducible. So we have a state A, B, C. Okay, so I'll not write the probability distributions here because it just clutters the graph. The probability of going from A to B, B to C, so I'll not write. So this is not irreducible. Okay, as we cannot reach D. Let us say probability is 1 here. Cannot reach D. So D is entered the strongly connected component ABC, we cannot reach the state D. So that is not this is not an irreducible Markov chain. So this will still have a unique stationary distribution. Okay, so this will still have a unique stationary distribution, but a feature of this stationary distribution is that it will have a 0 for D. We can say pi of D is equal to 0. Okay, pi is a vector for the dth state, it will be 0, because if we move long enough in the Markov chain, we will never reach D. So the probability of being in D is there. So the stationary distribution will be 0. So in so called a transient state. Transient state. We will look at further characterizations. We'll look at math also. What is a transient means moment, it will pass. Yeah, something like that. And we say that the states A, B, and C, that this is a set of recurrent states. From the name it follows, because they keep appearing again and again. Another observation is that, like the previous example, this is also aperiodic. Okay, so this was our first example. This is the second example. So this graph is also, and just look at the GCD of what is happening. Okay, so if you look at 3, okay, so just we can quickly look at the example that we can go A, B, A. So this cycle has length 2 from A to B, B to A, or we can go A, B, C, A. So this has the length 3. Therefore, the GCD of the length of these two cycles is 1. I mean, we did not see why this is aperiodic. A to B, B to. Yeah. So the GCD is 1. So that is why this is an aperiodic graph. So next we will look at another example. So we'll just, so this example is, let's say A prime, B prime, C prime. Like last time, we have A, B, C. And here we have D and we have D prime. Okay. This goes here, this comes here, this comes here. Let's say this is 1, this is 1 by 3, this is 2 by 3. All right. So we have just taken 2 copies of the of example 2 and we have connected them together. So in this, the set of transient states is D, discussed earlier, because because these are transient states, will not the chain will not be in D or in D prime at steady state. Now the recurrent, there are 2 sets of recurrent states. We have A, B, C, and we have A prime, B prime, C prime. Okay, so these are 2 sets. We do not write them together because if we assume that the initial state is D prime, if we go inside, let's say L prime loop, then we stay inside the L prime loop. On the other hand, if by chance we go to the loop L, then we will never come out of that L. So there are 2 sets of recurrent states here. We say that R1 and R2. Now the stationary probability distribution pi is equal to pi D prime will be 0. Okay, so for all, so this this particular Markov chain does not have a unique stationary probability distribution. Okay, so it does not have a unique probability distribution, but even in all those possible stationary distributions, we will have the probability of being in D and D prime equal to 0, and which follows from the common sense that since we can never reach D and D prime, it will be 0. So it follows. Then the other standard observation is again that it is aperiodic, which we already saw. So now here it has two, what we can call two primitive stationary distributions. Okay, because it has two sets of recurrent states, it has two primitive stationary distributions. So one in which all entries in R1 will have zeros. Okay, so all entries in states corresponding to R1. So I've just written it in shorthand that all entries in states corresponding to R1 will have 0 because at that, okay, so let us say that this is R1. This is R1, this is R2. Okay. So in states corresponding to R, corresponding to A prime, B prime, and C prime. These two will always be 0, and we will have zeros for ABC as well. And the second probability distribution is the same. It will have all entries in R2 will be 0. So all entries in R2 will be 0. Then there are many other stationary probability distributions as well, in which these two primitive distributions. Okay, so all stationary distributions are primitive distributions. So one word of caution, which is important here, is that till now we have been motivated distributions as something of a steady state. But the stationary distribution for irreducible Markov chains, it will be the steady state. But if the Markov chain is not irreducible, then the stationary distribution has got nothing to do with steady state. So these two things might be completely different. So it is important to understand the difference between stationary distribution and steady state. Okay. So steady state basically means that if we run the Markov chain forever, does it converge to a probability distribution? Okay. So if we run it forever, so for example, if we take pi 0 to the n, when n tends to infinity, does it ever converge to a probability distribution? Okay. And stationary distribution, it says it should satisfy pi p is equal to pi. So it is not necessary that the stationary distribution will also be the steady state distribution. To give example, consider the fourth example, which is the example of a periodic Markov chain. This is the simplest periodic chain that we can have. We have two states A and B, the probability of going from A to B is 1 and the probability of going from B to A is 1. The transition probability matrix for the simple Markov chain will be 0, 1, 1, 0. One can verify that the stationary probability distribution is 0 0.5, 0 0.5. Okay, so we will have pi p is equal to pi. So the stationary probability distribution is 0 0.5, 0 0.5, but not the steady state distribution. It never reaches the steady state distribution. It periodically moves on here and there. So uh, suppose the initial state is A. Okay, so if the initial state is A, then at even intervals, so let us say pi of 2t, pi of 2ta will be is equal to 1 and 2t is equal to of b will be equal to 0. Even in odd time steps. Okay, because this is a periodic chain. So at even time steps, we will be at state A, and at odd time steps, we will be at state B. There does not exist a steady state probability distribution. Okay. So the stationary distribution exists in this case, and it turns out that it is unique as well. However, it is not the same as the steady state distribution, as we have just seen here. There is one interpretation. We can look at the stationary distribution for this as uh, as denoting the average, denoting the average time spent in states. Okay, for periodic, we can consider that it denotes the average time spent in the states. So this is the equivalence between the steady state stationary distribution and yeah, irreducibility and everything. So the key point here is to remember that the relation between stationary and steady state. Okay, so if you have an irreducible Markov chain, then stationary distribution will converge to the steady state, will become the steady state. However, if you do not have an irreducible Markov chain, these two concepts are not necessarily equivalent. And we just saw some examples of this. Okay, so after this discussion, we will now move to the second part of today's lecture, in which we will discuss some analysis associated with these things. We'll do some math, some simple basic probability stuff associated with these things. To motivate that, we'll just consider two examples on the which will motivate the parameters which we are going to study. Okay, so we will be looking at parameters like the number of times we visit a particular state, the expected number of times we visit the state, return time, time to visit, and all those things. In general, the Markov chains, they can be used to model web search and in PageRank. Okay, the textbook, or we should be now I should not call it as textbook because we have covered a lot of material which is not in the book. But anyway, so the book by Professor Kannan, it discusses in detail the application of Markov chains or in fact random walks in PageRank algorithms. So the idea is basically that so the billions of web pages that we have on the internet, we construct a directed graph where each web page acts as the node of that graph. The links basically they point to different graphs. There are some modifications in the graph which we need to do to make sure that it becomes irreducible and all sorts of things. But the ranking of the pages is so in this, the key idea is that the ranking of the pages in the sense that whenever we do suppose a Google search, then the highest ranked search should come in the first. I mean, yeah. So you get the idea what we are trying to say. The most relevant searches should come on the top. And how do we determine which are the most relevant searches? We associate a rank to them, and the ranking is based on the stationary distribution. Okay, so we'll do a random walk on the graph which has billions of nodes, and after a very long time we will see what is the average time spent on each state, and based on that we will associate a rank to this. So we have discussed it in a very flaky terms, but yeah, we're just trying to motivate stuff. Okay, so then the second is the same kind of thing but on e-commerce websites. Okay, so on e-commerce websites we do the same thing. If we consider items as nodes in graph, then I mean there is some work done in the operations research literature in which they are trying, because there is something called as an assortment optimization, where they have to optimize the number of products which we see at the bottom of the page. So whenever we go into Amazon or Flipkart, we are buying something, but it gives suggestions, and those suggestions are very finite. So there are applications of Markov chain modeling in assortment optimization and other stuff as well, where they want to maximize the profit based on maximize the profit, or yeah, such that they want to show up the options, the assortment at the page at the bottom, let's say 5 or 6 items, to maximize the chances that we will buy those items. So in that as well, the items, they can be modeled as states in Markov chains. So if you want, I can refer you to a paper which does that. So these are the two aspects, and when we are looking at applications such as these, we need to be familiar with some analysis tools and some technical jargons associated with those things. So that is the agenda of the rest of the lecture. Okay, we will be introducing. We'll be spending at least 10-15 minutes in introducing the notations, and then some another 20-30 minutes on working with those notations. So what you should do at this point of time, if you are familiar with all these things, then it is very good. But if not, it might be helpful to just write down the notations on a piece of paper, so that when we move ahead in the literature, in the lecture, sorry, when we talk about a certain parameter, then you know what it means immediately. You do not have to go back to the lecture to listen to what those parameters are. So the first thing which we define is T subscript Y. It is okay. So what it means is that time of first return, or let's say visit to Y. Okay, so all the things that we will be discussing, there is nothing very complicated about those things, but since because of just the volume of stuff, it might become very cumbersome. The ideas are very simple. So we have defined a set where n greater than 1, the minimum time. Okay, so the time of first visit, first is because of minimum here. So that is Ty. Then we also define something as Ty of k. Okay. So the time after k minus first visit, so it is a recursive kind of definition. So the time, the first time of visiting y after the k minus first visit. Okay. So time of kth return to y. It follows that we have. Okay. So this is, yeah, it follows directly from the definition. So Ty is the time of first visit to y. Ty, so superscript k is the time of kth return to y. And the next parameter that we have is probability. Okay, just be careful because my handwriting is such that I sometimes it is easy to confuse x with n when I am writing quickly. So what it means is that probability that ty is equal to n starting from x. Okay. So here we have defined an initial state. So in A and B, we were not talking about the initial state. So the probability that we will hit the state y in the nth time step when we start from x. So this is what this means. Now the next is okay. So this is just the expected time. So should probably not have n here, but yeah. Okay, so this is just the expected value of time when we will hit y from x. Hit y the first time from x because ty was defined as the first thing. Then the next relevant notation is rho of xy. So rho of xy is the probability that we will hit y in finite time or we will visit y in finite time. Okay, to write it in words, probability of reaching from x to y in finite time. Okay, that is rho of xy. To understand what it means, so consider a path x0 is x, x1 is let's say x1, xk minus 1 is equal to xk minus 1 and xk is equal to y. Okay, then the probability of this path is that we go from x to x1, that we go from x1 to x2, so on, and then we go from x k minus 1 to y. Okay, so this is the probability of just this one path. So when we are doing rho of xy, it is the sum of all such path probabilities. Okay, so that the probability of reaching from x to y in finite time. So we consider all possible paths from reaching x to y. Then we add all those path probabilities, and what we get is rho of xy. Okay, we have rho of xy. We can also define rho of y. Y. The interpretation is the same. The initial condition is just y. Okay, so the probability of returning to y from y. Obviously, when we're saying returning, it means that we are returning. But anyway, in finite steps. We can write this more formally as well. So rho of sum over all n, the probability that we reach y in nth step such that initial state was y and xj not equal to y 0 j n. Okay. As we have already seen, I mean, all these concepts are simple, but just the notation and working, remembering all these notations, it becomes cumbersome. So what we are doing here is that the probability of reaching y from y, like we broke it down in path probabilities, here we have written it in a slightly different way. So we can reach it in one step, two step, three steps, four steps, whatever steps. Then this sums it over the number of steps which we can take. Where we finish on y, we start in y, and intermediate states are not y. Okay. So if the intermediate states are some y, then it is covered in a smaller n. Okay. So that is rho of yy. Then this is a slightly different notation. So we say that this is probability okay. So this basically means that the probability that the kth return time, the probability of kth return in finite. We will we will talk more about this in just a few moments, but just keep this in mind. I'll just introduce one more notation before we will start with our analysis. So n subscript y is number of visits to y. Okay, so we will be interested in finding the expected number of visits to y, and later on we will say that if this state is recurrent, then the expected number of visits to y will be infinity, because I think it is common. If we just think through it, it is common sense, because uh, the state has to visit a recurrent state infinite number of times, because the probability of reaching that state is non-zero. In fact, okay, the recurrent state and transient states are defined as such. So we have the probability of returning to y in finite steps. If it is 1, then we say that it is a recurrent state. And if the probability of reaching y in finite steps is not 1, then we say that it is a transient state. Okay. Now what we will do is that with this characterization, we will use it to prove a claim. Okay, so the left hand side and the right hand side, they do not mean the same thing. So what the left hand side is saying, it is the probability of kth return in finite time. Okay, and the right hand side is the kth power of kth power of probability of first return in finite time. Okay, so there is a difference in this, but conceptually we can say that this is the same because of the memoryless property or something. So we'll just discuss the idea of the proof. So the idea of the proof is that we maintain a timer. So this is sort of a very informal kind of proof. And then as soon as the Markov chain does the first return to y, stop the timer and restart. Okay. So after it returns for the first time, we have stopped the timer, and so then y becomes like an initial state. Then we will run the timer again. So where the first return happens at pyy, row yy, then we have stopped the timer. Then y becomes like an initial state. Then we will again record the first return. So first return after stopping the timer once is actually the second return. Similarly, we'll do it by induction for k returns, and we can prove that. Okay. So we have used here the concept of stopping time. So we are stopping the clock at a random time. So there is a general concept of stopping time as well. Okay. So not associated with Markov chains only. There is a general concept of stopping times. So stopping time is basically uh, so based on the applications, any random variable can be used as a stopping time as long as, so there is only one condition, that as long as we can test the stopping conditions from history, from historical data. Let us just say from historical data. So we have observed uh, the evolution of the system till a time t. Now we have to determine, or let us just say that we have to write a program to determine whether a certain condition is followed or not. If certain conditions are followed, then stop. If it is not followed, then do not stop. Then to whether we have to test those conditions should be testable. So this is like a very common sense approach. If we can test it from historical data, then that can be used as a stopping time. If we cannot test it, then that is not a valid stopping time, and it has some relation to Markovian property as well, memoryless and anything. So one good thing which you should mull over, this is not an exercise but just to understand. uh, so if we write stop at the last visit to y. Okay, so is this a valid stopping time or not? Because how will we test if it is the last visit to y, or maybe it will come back again, it might come back again to y or not? So for testing this condition, we have to look at future, or what will happen in the future. So this is not a valid definition of a stopping time. But in general, when we are doing it, the first return, second return, third return, we can use the concept of stopping time. And by using the concept of stopping time, we can work with memoryless properties and all those things, and we have basically this result. Okay, so this is uh, another important concept which might be useful in general as well, for general stochastic analysis. So next, uh, we move on with further many other simple, like what we have been discussing till now is very simple. We will continue with that. Okay. So consider a random variable x which takes values 1, 2, and so on. Okay. Then we work with the indicator variable. The indicator variable definition is that x greater than or equal to n. 1 if x is greater than n, or 0 else. Okay. So we have defined an indicator variable which basically indicates, we use this trick in the proof of Markov inequality as well. If the random variable's value is greater than n, then it gives out 1 and something like that. So this we have this relation known. If not, you can try this out. 1 into p greater than probability that x is greater than or equal to n plus 0 times something. So the 0 will go. Now we are interested in the expected time, expected value of x. So the expected value of x is, so this was the expected value of the indicator variable. Now we are working with the expected value of x itself. So it will be probability that x is equal to 1 plus 2 times the probability that x is equal to 2 plus 3 times the probability that x is equal to 3, and so on. So it will be an infinite sum. Now observe then what is the probability that x is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so that is equal to probability that x is equal to 1 plus probability that x is equal to 2 plus probability that x is equal to 3, and so on. Similarly, probability that x is greater than or equal to 2 will be, I think you would have got what we are trying to do here. Okay, so when we add all these things together, what we get is expected value of x, because 1 times, 2 times, and 3 times. Okay, so the result that we have is that the expected value of x is n tends n is 1 to infinity probability that x is greater than or equal to n. Okay, so this is I mean this is there in the random in any probability basic course as well, but just for a reminder. Okay, so this was the first observation. Then the second observation is that if we recall our notation that ny is number of visits to y. Okay, now we are interested in this quantity. Okay, just recall what was this quantity. It was the probability that the kth visit to y from x happens in finite time. Kth visit to y from x happens in finite time. All right. So this can be written as okay. The probability that the kth visit happens in finite time is equal to the probability that we visit y at least k times. Okay, so if we have visited y at least k, so when we visit y, it must be infinite time. So we are saying that we visit y at least k times. That means uh, that the time taken to visit y at least k times is finite. Okay, you can take your time at home and think the left hand side and y left hand side and the right hand side are equal. So if you have to visit y at least k times from x, we can write this as visit x, visit y from x, and then k minus 1 visits. Okay, so is this clear? So rho of xy, rho of xy is the probability of reaching from x to y in finite time. So if we are interested in visiting y k many times in finite times, so we reach x from x to y the first time in finite time, and then from y to y k many times. Okay, from y to y k many times. So this is the relation that we have. Next, from the derivation that we have just done, the expected value of number of visits is okay. So I'll just quickly do some calculations. So then we will use this equation here. We will substitute. So what we will get is rho of xy k is equal to 0 to infinity rho yy k. So this is a probability. So geometric sum converges. So we will have rho xy 1 minus rho yy. Okay. So what we have proved is that the expected number of visits is given by this equation. Okay, no? Okay. So now we had defined recurrent states. For recurrent state, we will have rho yy equal to 1. So in implies expected visits is infinity. Okay, so this agrees with our common sense. Now another little observation which we have. So many of these things are just related. So another little observation we have is that the number of visits to y n is equal to 1 to infinity, the indicator variable of xn is equal to y. So I'm not defining the indicator variable again. I think you would have grasped the concept of the indicator variable. Okay. So number of visits to y, the visit can happen in one step, can happen in two steps, can happen in three steps. So indicator variable, it just adds up all the visits to y which can happen in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. And when we add all these things up, we will get the total number of visits to y. So just think through this equation till you are convinced. Now, if we take expectations on both sides with respect to the initial from x, what we will get is n is equal to 1 to infinity. Probability of reaching from x to y in n steps. Okay, so this is n. If you take expectations on both sides, we will get this term. Next, once we have this, then the next is the following claim. If y is recurrent and rho yx is greater than 0, then x is recurrent. Okay. So this claim from common sense, it follows, because if y is recurrent, then we are visiting y infinitely many times. The expected number of visits to y is infinity. So if rho yx is greater than 0, then it means that the probability of visiting x from y in finite time is non-zero. So we will basically be visiting these many, we will be visiting x this many fraction of time, and this is also infinity. So this, it follows from common sense, but if you have to prove it, it takes some work. I mean, it is easy, the proof is not very complex, but I will keep that as an exercise. So what we have to prove, is this. Okay, that the expected number of visits to x is 0, and to prove that we will use the quantity that we just proved. Okay, so this is do it yourself exercise. So please try this at home just to become comfortable with all the notations and what is going on. Common sense we can work it through, but when we have to write it down, or when we have to prove something, for example, if you're writing a paper later on, then this exercise will be useful. Then another claim which follows is that a finite irreducible Markov chain has at least one recurrent state. Okay, so the proof for this claim is that it hinges on, we will calculate sum of expected number of visits to all states. So this is the quantity which we will start from. I mean, these are just tricks which when we practice, we will become more comfortable. Okay, so we have written expected as this term. Then we will interchange the summation n is equal to 1 to infinity. Okay, so for a fixed value of n, the sum of probability of all possible next states is equal to 1. And because it is an irreducible, whatever, we don't need that. So what we will obtain is something like this. Okay. Now, since the sum is infinity, it means that, and the number of states is finite, it means that at least one y must be such that go to infinity. Okay, so this is just a simple proof. So I mean, yeah, there is no deep philosophy in all those things. I mean, just that we need to be in the habit of using these tricks. These are innocuous looking claims. Then the next is that in a finite irreducible Markov chain, all states are recurrent. Okay. So this I think follows directly because if y is recurrent and rho yx is greater than 0, then x is recurrent. We have proved that if for an irreducible Markov chain at least one is recurrent, and if it is an irreducible chain, then rho of yx will be greater than 0, then all states are recurrent. Okay, so that is the simple. I will not write it down in the other things. So we will look. So I think that's all for today's lecture. So today's lecture was, we I think did not discuss anything very profound, but a sequence of small tricks and just getting comfortable with the notation and the technical jargon. So there is a lot of technical jargons. If you look at some books, they will also be talking about communicating states and all those things. In the textbook, they also use in Professor Khandan's book, they use the term of persistent states. There are lots of things, but we just have to focus on the concepts and not worry too much of about what is called what. Okay, recurrent transient I think is more than enough. So that's all for today's lecture.